Luqman Nation, this is Jackie Luqman.
And that's Shahid Luqman.
And we are out here on the C&O Canal Trail. We wanted to just be out enjoying our Sunday. But we also, why is there always a plane? There's usually a plane because National Airport is not too far from here. But anyway, we wanted to be out today just enjoying our Sunday like we usually do. We usually reserve our Sundays for family. But we were at the People's Convergence Convention yesterday, and we did some live streams from there. So we wanted to talk about not necessarily that conference, but we just wanted to give you our thoughts on where progressives need to go from this point on, as far as political action is concerned.
Yeah, I mean, as many of you know, Jackie, you were on 2 panels yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
The first panel, fighting racism in the age of Trump,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other one was how to break the stranglehold
Mm-hmm.
of corporate media, and both of them, in my opinion, went well. But let's do a recap before we move on about. Let's give it like a brief recap of what you thought. The first panel, fighting racism at the age of Trump. What was your thoughts on that?
Well, I was really pleased with the viewpoints of the panelists, because a couple of the panelists, the young guy Kenny, I can't remember his last name right now,
From Jamaica, Queens,
yeah,
New York.
from Jamaica, Queens, New York. He's got that youthful fire that I love to see, that we love to see,
Right.
And he echoed so many of the sentiments that we have talked about on this show. I mean, for years, about how the so-called leadership in the Black community hasn't been effective in advancing an agenda for Black people, especially poor Black people and working class Black people, that's been beneficial to us.
Right.
And then we heard from Native and Latino perspectives. We heard from socialist perspective. We heard from our friend Yane. Just all of the stuff that we have said at some point in our discussions with you about the state of affairs for Black America, for Native Americans, for brown people. All of these people summed up or expressed everything
Right.
that we have said over a number of years, and that told me that we all know what needs to be done.
Right.
We seriously know what needs to be done. There's not a lack of knowledge about what needs to be done in regard to addressing racism in America. Part of the problem is that on the left and the progressive circles, we're not great at addressing racism
Right.
in our own bedroom, as I said. And the Democrats have a hard time doing it within their party on the left. So we've got work to do in that area, in dealing with the racism on the left in progressive circles. At the same time that we have to deal with systemic and institutional racism in America in general, at the same time we have to deal with the political aspect of this fight. So, I mean, we have to fight on multiple fronts. And the great thing about that panel was that there was consensus on what the problems were. Oh, and I forgot, while we also have to deal with racism, or classism is what it really is, within the Black community.
Was when you and Yane both had a problem with the way that it was worded. You both, and I would like for you to basically go into that a little bit about, because everybody else was talking about how to end racism within the Trump era. But you and Yane had something different. You were talking about why is it even worded that way? Could you expound on that a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, the organizer of the conference actually asked me what I thought about the title of the panel, and so I knew what the title was before the conference was even had even started, and I told her to actually keep it that way because I wanted to make the point that Trump isn't the problem. Trump didn't start racism; he didn't make it worse. I know a lot of people think that, but Trump didn't make racism worse. I think that he has given some legitimacy to white supremacist and racist ideology, so that you have people now who are more emboldened to stage a white supremacist rally.
Right.
You know,
right.
that. So yeah, Trump has given legitimacy to these people who have always had these ideas. But like I have said before, this isn't a Trump problem. Because anytime Donald Trump can sign an executive order for his so-called Muslim ban, and the next day customs agents are harassing people at airports, at checkpoints,
right.
and that lets you know that the problem didn't start with Trump. The problem has always existed with people in positions of authority. And these people have always been in the immigration and customs agents' offices.
Right.
They've always been in the police departments. They've always been in ICE. They've always been in federal agencies. They've always been our teachers. They've always been our judges. They've always been there. So this problem isn't an issue of fighting racism in the Trump era. It's the problem is that we've never seriously and honestly dealt with racism in this country, period. That's the problem. People are focusing so much on how horrible Donald Trump is, but Donald Trump is really just the logical conclusion of Americans willfully ignoring the issues of race and white supremacy in this country. So, you know, the focus, we need to break our focus of Trump. Yes, he's horrible. Yeah, he's terrible. He's as terrible as we thought he'd be.
Right.
You know, he's as terrible as we knew he was before he even got into politics. Donald Trump hasn't changed. But we can't just focus on him because the very same issues that we're dealing with existed in the Obama administration.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, they existed in the Bush administration. They existed in the in the Reagan administration. They existed under Clinton, and we just kept ignoring it. We just kept kicking the can down the road. So I wanted the title of the panel to remain fighting racism in the era of Trump because I wanted people to understand how short-sighted and absurd it is to think that the era of Trump is the problem.
Yeah, and I mean, I thought that that the panelists, first of all, I mean, were really well chosen. I mean, like you said, with the cross section and all. I really, and you know, I may be a little biased here, but you know, as an observer, I felt that you and Yane brought a different perspective to it, where you took it outside of trying to work within this framework of Trump. You know, and I've heard this too, Jackie, that you know, one of the reasons why people had a problem with the way that wording was, or within that context, is that you know it sort of sends the message that we never had any of these problems until Trump came.
Right.
I mean, even with you know, this whole thing that Trump is terrible, Trump is bad, but I mean, out of all the 45 presidents that this country has had, there has been other terrible presidents.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, Trump is not. He's bad, and but yet, you know, there were people before him who were bad. You know?
Right.
So, but one of the things that struck me in that conference, and one of the things, this is going to be something that's been talked about later on, but one of the things that struck me is that there, you know, when it got to the point to the question and answering part, and it was a elderly, you know, elderly black man who was very passionate. And I mean, he was talking about, I mean, you can see his passion. He was basically giving us a little brief history of, you know, the struggles that happened before Trump. You know, what he witnessed and what he seen. And, but yet, you know, there were people before him who were bad. You know? So, but one of the things that struck me in that conference, and one of the things that struck me is that there, you know, when it got to the point to the question and answering part, and it was a elderly, you know, maybe elderly black man who was very passionate. And I mean, he was talking about, I mean, you can see his passion. He was basically giving us a little brief history of, you know, the struggles that happened before Trump. And even though, you know, the time constraints were like what they was, I think he was only allowed 30 seconds. It took almost 30 minutes, you know. But you can see he was trying to get a lot in. After he said what he said, I like the way that you amplified his voice. I say amplify his voice because when he got back, after he was finished, you know, but just tell what you said when you were talking about that. I thought that was nice.
Well, I listened to what the guy said, and I love it when people are passionate and they share knowledge that I don't have. So he gave us a couple of books to read, and, you know, I wrote those down, and that was great. The one book he gave to read, what was it, the Creation of Whiteness or something like that.
Something like that.
Definitely going to get that book. But he was so passionate in the things that he had seen and experienced, and it was like, I felt like he was nearing the end of his life and he knew it, right? And he was just so glad that he could see a new generation of people trying to pick up the mantle that had clearly been dropped. And he was trying to express to us his sense of urgency because he knew he wasn't going to see the end of this issue. And we probably won't in our lifetime, but it was urgent for him to tell us that we need to be educated on the tools we need to fight this beast, for the next generation to fight this beast. Because we shouldn't be satisfied with having to continue to fight this in the same iteration, with the same, at the same level, in the same way, generation after. There ought to be some more improvement. There ought to be some more progress. And I could sense his desperation and his frustration, and his passion for the next generations going at this thing with everything they have. And, you know, I knew we were under time constraints, but I also know that we have a generation of young warriors who have sat at the feet of some of the elders, but they're also kind of impatient, right? And they don't really want to sit and just listen. So I really just wanted that man to know that I understood his sense of urgency, and I appreciated it, and I respected the heck out of it, because it was good to hear, you know, because it just gave me encouragement that, yeah, I'm on the right path, because I need that sometimes.
Well, and then I think what struck out to me, what he said, was he, because the whole thing was about, I guess the whole convention was about creating a third party.
Right.
The People's Party.
Right, or getting all of these people together who are interested in a third party structure to work together, Well,
one of the things that the gentleman said that really struck out to me, he said, look, I don't have another 20 years. It's going to take like 20 years. He said to even, if you got 20 years to build a party to the point that it would be competitive.
Right.
I don't have that kind of time. And also he mentioned this, which I've heard some other friends of ours say. He said, we're dealing with climate change. We all might not be here in another 20 years to see this thing go. But the reason why I was so glad that you amplified his voice and that you expounded on what he was saying, and that you recognized him as an elder. Because one of the things I think is very lacking in the progressive movement, we're dealing with the racism, we're dealing with the classism within the progressive movement, sexism, a lot of these things we're dealing with in the progressive movement, but we don't mention ageism.
Right.
And I'll be honest with you, we don't mention ageism. And as a middle-aged man myself who's seen some things, it frustrates me that a lot of younger progressives, even younger talented progressives who are really doing the work, how dismissive they are of our experiences. And when I mean our experiences, I'm talking about experiences of people who's been around a little bit. I'm 51 years old. I lived through some of the riots. I was a child, but I lived through those uprisings. I lived through some of those uprisings. I remember when Rizzo was mayor of Philadelphia and gave a green light to police brutality. I was a victim of that police brutality. You know, and friends of mine that grew up who were victims of that. I was there. I was around when they dropped the bomb or moved. I saw the neighborhood on Osage Avenue, West Philadelphia, go up in flames. And a lot of our young progressives who weren't even born at the time, or if they were born, they were toddlers, had no awareness of what's going on. They fail to realize that there are some of us in this movement who lived that, you know, who were there. We're not getting this information secondhand.
Right.
We saw this. I not only seen the neighborhood burn, but I also remember when they called themselves repairing these houses. And I remember how, because of the shoddy construction and that they don't give a damn about black people, and that the property that black people lost, they really didn't give a damn about, it wasn't valuable to them. They threw up these shoddy housing, and what happened is they had to evict everybody out because there were cracks in the walls. I mean, it was literally falling down on top of these people. So I mean, so when you try to express this to some of our younger members, and they just, you know, they come off dismissive. You know, that frustrates me because, oh yeah, you know, like the young man said on the panel about young people having the energy, and that is true. I mean, that has always been true. Each generation of freedom fighters and liberation movements always had to rely on the energy of the young. But the young had to also rely upon the experience and the wisdom and the knowledge of the elders.
Exactly.
You know, so you know, and until we respect that, until we mutually respect that, it's one thing to say that, okay, we're the young, we have the energy, we have this, we have that, and we could, you know, basically, you know, we have the energy for the long haul, where, you know, you elders, you know, you did your thing, but you know, it's just, hey, it's life, you know, you slow down as you get older. But at the same time, what the elders haven't lost is life experience, which you can only get from living.
Exactly.
But you can only get from living.
Right.
You know, the passion's never going to make up for that. So I think that as we go along, and I was telling you, Jackie, that one of the things that always struck me is that how on the right, they don't do their elders like that. And when I mean elders, they're political elders. You could get a young white conservative today who believes he's conservative, or get someone from the alt-right, they'll still praise Ronald Reagan. Some of them wasn't,
David Duke.
Yeah, some of them wasn't even born when Reagan was president. You know, or David Duke, you know, or some of them even talk about the Turner Diaries and Newt Gingrich. Some of them is even talking about that Hitler was a genius. You know, and so what I'm saying is, and even within their ranks, those white supremacists and racists who are lesser known, who are elders in their community, they're, you know, they're middle aged and older, but you know, but they're doing their part to establish their vision. And there's none of this. You know, you don't see a lot of this dismissing of their views or their opinions. But it seems like in the progressive movement, you know, we treat everything like, you know, and I don't mean to generalize, but I'm saying this is my experience. Like the experience that I see is that, you know, we're very disposable, and like we do in the society. It's like as soon as you know, you get a certain age, then we can't use you anymore. Or as soon as you're not relevant, or we think you're not relevant, or you're not the hottest new thing on the block, then we don't have any use for you anymore. Or we want all the old hippies, you know, to sit over there and just be quiet.
Be our cheerleaders.
Just cheerlead us on and everything. Nah, if we are going to really affect change in the society, we can't afford to dismiss anyone. And that's the thing. And I think that in the progressive movement, we deal with racism, we deal with all these other isms, but until we also get serious about ageism, because, I mean, face it or not, the baby boomers, and I'm just under the cusp of that, they still outnumber millennials. The baby boomers not only outnumber millennials, they got more wealth than the millennials. You know what I mean? I mean, so, you know, and this is not to disparage the millennial efforts, but what I'm saying is that you have to use the strengths that you have. And okay, yeah, maybe us older people, middle age and up, maybe we don't have the stamina to march from Jacksonville, Florida to New York City. We might not have that, or maybe we don't have the energy to do a lot of the footwork and the grunt work. But at the same time, when you need financing, who can you go to?
Right.
Well-established baby boomers who are in a better positions financially. Right. Baby boomers who got connections that millennials have yet to make.
Right.
Baby boomers that can share off of their experiences and have been in organizations where many of these millennials weren't even thought of. Right. That could give their experience of what organizing truly means and to take advantage of that. Right. So we have to really be careful about thinking that ageism is something that we can that we can allow to happen within the progressive movement.
Yeah, I mean we cannot ignore our elders. We can't. And then the thing is, we can't blame our elders for the problems that we have on the one hand, and then ignore our elders who have always been fighting when we want a solution to the problems.
Right.
That you can't. I mean, everybody's a little bit hypocritical on some things, but we need to recognize our hypocrisy, and we need to be careful that we don't do it. Right? We just need to be very careful that we're not turning away from a wealth of knowledge and support that comes from our elders, because we look at them as, oh well, you people are the reason we're having these problems, right? So I'm glad you brought that up about the ageism. That was a great point. So that was the first panel, and the first panel was cool, and I actually thought I was only on one panel yesterday. I didn't realize I was on two panels.
We had such a good time.
We did. We were having a great time, and we were talking to people after the first panel. And then somebody said to me, "Hey, you are late for your second panel." I was like, "What second panel?" So it turns out I was also on this panel. What was it? Breaking the stranglehold of corporate media. And I didn't even look at who else was on the panel. This is how much I don't pay much attention to celebrity, right, anymore. But so we get to the room, and I open the door, and I'm waiting for a lull in the conversation so I can slide into the chair that is next to the moderator. And I don't even notice that the people sitting at the table are Jordan Charlton, I think that's how you Charlton, of TYT, Tabitha Williams. Is that her last name?
I think so.
Yeah, Tabitha. I think it's Tabitha Williams and Tyrell Ventura. And if you don't know who Tabitha Williams invited, I know you know who Jordan Charlton is. But if you don't know who Tabitha Williams and Tyrell Ventura are, you don't watch Russia Today Network, and you don't watch Watching the Hawks. We love that show. We love Watching the Hawks. And on top of loving Watching the Hawks, I'm like an old school wrestling fan, so I love Jesse Ventura.
Oh, so do I. Yeah.
So I'm all embarrassed because I'm late, like 30 whole minutes late to this panel, and I'm trying to wait for this lull in the conversation, and I slide into the chair next to the moderator, and I turn to look at him, and I'm so sorry, and I see Tyrell Ventura and Tabitha. I was like, oh crap! I am sitting at a table with people I watch on television almost every week. That's insane. So we had this great conversation, which there were a lot of people in that session. Both sessions were very well attended, which was really great. And people brought up some really great points in the session on breaking the stronghold on corporate media. But I really liked what Jordan Charlton said about progressives and this weird litmus test we have, this purity test we have about the media we consume. Look, y'all, I understand that corporate media is bullshit. I understand they lie. I understand they don't tell the whole story. I understand that they're paid, that some outlets are paid by people who supported Hillary Clinton. But that is not a reason to never read information from those people. There is no better way. First of all, there's no better way to know how your enemy thinks than to read the information they produce. So if you know that the Washington Post is owned by establishment Democrat supporters and Clinton supporters, what better way to know the kinds of narratives they're formulating than to read the Washington Post politics section?
Right. All the time.
Or the Washington Times, if you want to go to a more conservative perspective. If you want to know how conservatives think and how they frame their arguments against certain issues, what better way to figure that out if you don't know any actual conservatives to talk to than to read a conservative news source, right? I understand that you don't want to take their information and let it guide your actions as far as progressive policy, but we are doing ourselves a disservice if we ignore these outlets altogether. Because I used an example, which I think is still, it just blows my mind, that unless you read the Washington Post, and unless you read, I actually think it was in the opinion section. I don't think it was in the Metro section, like I said yesterday. But I think it was in the opinion section. There was a story about 4 or 5 young black kids who were selling bottled water on the mall. And that's normal in most big cities. During the summer, people sell bottled water that, they buy 2 cases of it from Walmart for $8, and they go sell 24 bottles on the street and make a profit.
And our kids are doing that. Why?
And our kids are doing that because, for a few reasons. One, they're poor. We're poor. And then 2, look, we're in a country that the mythos around this country is rugged individualism and do for self and be an entrepreneur and go out and make that money. So our kids are doing what they've been taught.
And also, our kids are also dealing with the 50% unemployment rate.
Exactly. They can't find a job.
Can't even find a job.
Our young black boys can't find jobs in the cities they work in. Nobody will hire them. So if they want a little extra money, this is what they do. This is the hustle. And it's not illegal. It's a valid way of making a few extra bucks.
Right.
So they were on the National Mall, down there by the Washington Monument and the museums and stuff. The police, undercover detectives, drive up on them, put handcuffs on them, sit them all on the ground, and issue them citations. And they did it because they alleged that they thought they were selling PCP, in which on the street, the street name for PCP is water. One of the streets.
Exactly.
Now, I don't believe that for a second. That was just the backstory that they used to cover their tracks for why they would put handcuffs on a bunch of kids who weren't doing anything more than trying to make a few bucks.
Practicing capitalism.
Practicing American capitalism.
Exactly.
But see, if you don't read the Washington Post because you're a progressive and you don't want to read the Clinton shill newspaper, the Washington Post, you don't know, you wouldn't know how our children were abused by the police. See, it's that kind of stuff you miss out on if you just refuse to read any mainstream publication. And like I said, I understand. Our dog is eating the weeds that are coming out of a log over here by the riverbank. That's kind of funny. So I mean, I understand that you don't want to read what they say and believe everything they say as far as politics are concerned. But you also have to remember that some of these publications also report on local issues.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those issues you're not going to... Brewski.
No, he's biting the bark.
Oh, you're chewing the bark. Okay. And some of these publications you're not going to... You're not going to get that information unless you read some of these publications. So we need to be a little bit more mature, progressives, when we're talking about corporate media. You don't have to watch CNN.
Right.
You don't have to let CNN dictate your political perspective. But that doesn't mean that you're being brainwashed by the media if you watch CNN. And we just spotted a deer that has come down by the river to drink, and so has Brewski. So we're keeping an eye on our dog,
right,
to make sure that the dog doesn't rip the log out from under the boulder to get to the deer. So, but this is why we come to places like this. to do to do these shows, because we love this kind of stuff. We love being outside. We love being out in the elements to enjoy. We love being out and enjoying this earth, what's left of it. There's plenty of beauty left for us to protect. There's plenty of beauty left for us to enjoy, and we don't like to let it go to waste. So that's part of the breaking the stranglehold of the media panel. That was real cool. The other part, I thought I really had to make a case for the fake news that's inundating the online progressive spaces. Now, I get that we don't want to listen to CNN, we don't want to watch CNN, we don't want to read the Washington Post, and we don't want to read even the Guardian now, some of us, because we find out that anybody on the staff of these papers donated money to Clinton or the DNC, and all of a sudden, they're shills for Hillary, or they're shills for the DNC, and they're all spreading fake news. We're quick on the draw when it comes to that, but we don't say anything about the fake news that progressives pass around, these damn memes that are nothing but flat out lies that nobody ever fact checks, but they keep passing that crap around, like that dangerous racist BS that was passed around about George Soros saying that he was going to overtake America by funding black hate groups. Progressives pass that bullshit around, and I'm looking on people's posts on social media, and people are agreeing with that crap. And they list a German magazine where he allegedly made this comment. Right. And there is no record of that man ever making that comment anywhere, not only in that magazine, but anywhere.
But but that also goes back to what you also said yesterday when you warned us about being careful that the same game that's being played as far as fake news go, that the same people who are playing that game is not playing the game on us too.
And that's what that's what they're doing. That's exactly what they're doing. This is the kinds of things that a lot of progressives are believing with this whole George Soros is funding this to distract us from healthcare. First of all, it's insulting on a personal level and on a political level. There's so many white progressives and some black progressives are piling on with this crap that racism and racist terrorism is staged and it's fake. And it was faked by George Soros to get y'all to stop thinking about health care. Right. Are you serious? That's insulting. We've been dealing with racism in this country all our lives. Nobody has to make that up. And nobody has to distract you from health care either. Because like you said, the reason we don't have health care for all is because of Congress. It's not because George Soros distracted you for anything. The reason you don't have Medicare for all is because Congress don't want you to have it. Because you keep voting for politicians who won't push it. So honestly, if anybody's being distracted from getting Medicare for all, it's been you. You've been the distraction. But then, all of these people are agreeing with this stuff, and they're resharing it over and over again. So then they're diminishing the very real and very serious problem of racism, which feeds into why when we had an issue with two white women making a false accusation of racism against black activists, so many progressives agreed with them and didn't push back on them. So now you've got this faction in the progressive movement that believes it's beneficial to us to work with the alt-right because they believe that the alt-right isn't actually racist. Where do you think that comes from?
Exactly.
That comes from the same people who have always used these kinds of ideas to infiltrate social and racial justice organizations to destabilize them and to stop them. It's the same group of people that try to delegitimize organizations and movements. So they plant these seeds of discord and division. They've got some people thinking that black people fighting for racism is a distraction and we're making too much noise. Then they've got other people thinking this one wealthy Jewish guy is behind the curtains being the puppet master and controlling everybody, pitting us all against each other and keeping us from the progressive policies that we want. And then you've got another group of people over here who have stopped watching any kind of news media, reading any kind of established newspaper, and they get all of their information and news from these weird, shady, new blogs, getting their information from memes. And it's interesting that so many progressives are believing the exact same things that are being said by conservatives and racists.
Right.
Because we talked to Phil Waledo last week. We went up to Richmond, Virginia Defenders, and we tried to get him on this week, but I think we're going to try to get him on. We tried to get him on last week. Well, I think we're going to get him on this week because he has some more information about Charlottesville that we didn't even know.
Right.
And
that we won't tell you until we talk to him.
And we're not going to tell you until we talk to him because it really is that deep, y'all. It really is that deep. But he said that he had heard people from the Unite the Right faction saying that they saw that these are the rumors that the racists are telling. Okay? That they were saying that people who were calling themselves Antifa and people who were on part of Unite the Right were getting out of the same bus.
Right.
So you've got racist white people spreading the rumor that all of this was faked to stir up division. And some of you progressives are repeating the same bullshit, not even realizing who's manipulating you. It's not George Soros that's distracting you from anything. Yes, the deep state, okay, fine. We want to talk about the deep state. This is what the deep state is. It's the government. Because it was the FBI that used these kinds of tactics, these misinformation tactics, these propaganda tactics, these tactics to spread disinformation and sow division and doubt and mistrust in organizations like the Black Panther Party, the American Indian Movement, the Weatherman, and other social and racial justice organizations. This is how the government discredited and weakened those organizations. And y'all are falling for the exact same tactics. Why?
Right.
Because you don't want to listen to black people.
And you know what's really ironic and what's really sad is the fact that most of us progressives, we pat ourselves on the back for being so much more cleverer than we look at the Trump supporters and the alt-right as being knuckle-dragging Neanderthals,
right? We're so much more enlightened.
Yeah, we're much more enlightened and smarter than them, and yet the same divide and conquer games are working on us too.
Right, and then we. Oh, I love that. I thank you for saying for saying divide and conquer, because these people are using the same, like you said, divide and conquer tactics. But then you turn around and accuse us of being the ones who are using divide and conquer tactics, because we are trying to confront and eradicate racism in the progressive movement and in this country. Excuse me. You're being used. You're being played, and you don't even realize it.
Right.
So, excuse me. I think a gnat went in my cut. So that was a really cool panel. And people were asking, well, how do we determine the difference between fake news and real news? You read it, and you read more than one source. I mean, if you get an article from teapartynews.org, are you just going to automatically believe what they say because their perspective validates your perspective when it comes to, say, not liking Hillary Clinton? Because that's what some of you all are doing. And that's not to excoriate Tea Party News. I'm just saying, why would you believe one source? That's not being well informed. It is not being, just taking somebody's source, somebody's opinion at face value just because it validates yours, that's not being well informed. That's living in an echo chamber. That's living in a bubble, a comfortable bubble that contains only your perspective.
Exactly. That's right.
That's not even mature. So definitely read more than one source. Validate what people say. Look up facts. You're on the internet. It's not hard.
So now, so after we, because this is the last day of the conference.
Right.
Right now, there's something that I want to go back to on Friday. Now, there's supposed to have been a petition drafted, given to Bernie Sanders,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes, it was delivered to his office.
It was delivered to his office.
Friday afternoon.
Now, from what I understand, is that all of this effort was done to kind of coax Bernie, to manipulate Bernie, actually. That's what I think, and manipulate Bernie and saying, well, we got this petition, we want you to run, so you got to do it.
These 50,000 people want you to
set
up a third party.
And Bernie did a David Copperfield.
Yeah.
He wasn't there.
And Cornel West actually made mention of that. He noted that at the town hall last night. I'll grab the video and post it on our page. I thought I did, but I'll grab the video and make sure and post it on our page from the town hall at the People's Convergence conference last night. Cornel West said, Bernie Sanders was wrong not to have somebody in his office to receive that petition. And I agree with Cornel West.
I do too.
I absolutely agree with it. But you go ahead and you finish what your thoughts are on this thing.
Well, my whole thoughts is that, first of all, Bernie never was interested. And Bernie said he wasn't interested long before this whole attempt at basically blackmailing him. And that's what I call it, blackmailing him with all of these signatures and saying, hey, look, we got all these signatures, we want you to have this one. The man said back at the convention, the DNC, if Bernie was going to do anything as far as a third party or as far as pushing this political revolution further
outside of the DNC,
right outside the DNC, then we would have had a hell of a convention. But Bernie, they said back then that hey, look, I understand that it was stolen from me. I understand that a lot of shenanigans were made, but I'm going to be a team player with the Democrats, and so. A lot of Bernie supporters, which I was one, mm-hmm. That wasn't good enough for a lot of us. We just felt that, Bernie is just saying the party line because we got to stop Trump. Right. Well, we didn't stop Trump. And you know what? Bernie's still not interested. Mm-hmm. I just saw a fox go by.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah, so Bernie's not interested. Now, if I see a bear in mountain lion, it's time to go.
It's which way?
Right. But anyway, and look, I'm not trying to disparage anybody's efforts when it comes to the third party thinking and that we need a third party. But one of the things that I would say is that one of the points that was brought up by Yane and a few others is that why are we trying to reinvent the wheel? Let's face it. Here we are talking about getting the People's Party together, and we got this car in the driveway that we rarely drive, which is called the Green Party. The Green Party's like that car you got in there. You're looking to buy a new car, but you got a car sitting out there in the driveway that you get in the car and you ride it around the block every 4 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then we park it and be like, oh, that's a good car, but I want something else. And we haven't even really used the car that we have. Yane, she brought that point up as well as you, and we had another Green Party member who was in the second panel, who was with the media panel, who wasn't part of the racism panel, and he echoed what Yane said. Yane said, look, we basically can do what we want with the Green Party. They started it, and they're like, here, we want y'all to take this over and make it into what you can make it into.
Right.
This young man who's from my home state of New Jersey, Green Party member, said the same thing. And he said, look, we got a party right there that's dying for us to take the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I'm sitting here saying, well, why are we trying to reinvent the wheel? And not only that, why are we, I heard some progressives say, well, this was a good conference, so now I want to go back to my home state and have this. Enough of the conferences.
No more conferences.
Jackie has been to the conference in Chicago.
The People Summit in
the
Chicago.
People Summit in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Now we went to this one over this past weekend. When is it that we're going to say, okay, enough with the conferences, let's get to work?
Right.
You know, because before we know it, if Donald Trump does survive these 4 years, and somebody said on the panel, and I kind of agreed with him, they said when after 8 years, 8 years of Donald Trump, and people are like, oh, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? Yeah, she said 8 years of Donald Trump. Oh, what are you talking about? Well, it's going to be 8 years of Donald Trump if we don't do something now, and if we don't start to organize now. So I think, and I don't want to, look, get mad at what I'm saying. Look, we have wasted too much time on efforts like this. The conference that we went to this weekend was a good thing. A lot of issues were raised. We don't need another one. And now you got this thing of, oh, well, we need to buy Bernie's book so we can stop the sale of Hillary's book.
Yeah.
I mean, what are we in, second grade?
to counteract
the sale of Hillary's book. Let it go. If we can sit back and tell Hillary supporters and Hillary Clinton, you lost, let it go, then Bernie supporters need to hear the same thing.
Yeah.
Let it go. Because what's happening is that it's energy, time, and effort that is being wasted that could be used to do something else. Jackie brought up a story about, and we had this on our page, about the people, poor black people in rural Alabama suffered from a hookworm epidemic because of poor sanitary conditions. And so stopping the sale of Hillary's book is not going to help those people. Stopping the sale of Hillary's book is not going to help the displaced people that's being displaced by Irma Harvey and then soon Jose and then Katia. She's in her corner. So it's not going to stop that. I mean, buying Bernie's book, that's not going to stop people who are being displaced out west from the fires. It's not going to stop. It's not going to help those islands that have been wiped out by Irma from being rebuilt. It's not going to help us deal with climate change. All it is just us, being school kids, and a lot of it is coming. And I don't mean to offend anyone, but a lot of it is coming from the tea and crumpet crowd who can't think of activism outside of that.
Right.
You know what I mean? They can't think of changing the world outside of tribal politics in the form of I'm Team Bernie, I'm Team Clinton, I'm Team this, I'm Team that. But yet they're the ones that's calling for all the unity, though. They're the ones that's calling for all the unity. No, unity based upon unity is on my terms. But they're the ones calling for all of the unity. But yet they're promoting the Starbucks revolution, the latte, sitting around with the tea and the crimpets, talking about, well, we need to stop Hillary. Look, even if you stop the sale of Hillary, but Hillary's a multimillionaire. Hillary Clinton set.
She doesn't care.
Trust me. Look, Hillary ain't gonna be Hillary. You're not driving Hillary to the poorhouse.
No.
And so we need to give up on these silly notions of stopping this, stopping that. When we, as Jackie always say, we have people out there with real life concerns, real life issues that need somebody to stand up for them.
Yep.
And that's the bottom line. That needs someone to stand up for them. That needs someone to say that we're going to advocate on the behalf of those who have no voice or those who are not listened to, and we're going to go in there and we're going to upset government. The Tea Party said that when they first formed. We're going to upset government. We laughed at them. Oh, look at these bunch of kooks walking around dressed up like colonial figures and colonial era figures and stuff. We laughed at them, and guess what? They changed the government.
They did.
Donald Trump is their magnus opus, as they say.
Right.
Yeah. Donald Trump is that. Yep. So now we're sitting around, patting ourselves on the back on how clever we are, how smart we are, how enlightened we are, and guess what? Most of the country don't even want to hear what we got to say.
That's right.
Because we have narrowed our politics so much to the point where we're disconnected from the everyday needs of everybody else. People could give a damn about Hillary's book. People could give a damn about Bernie Sanders' book. People could give a damn about a lot of things that we hold important. What people want to know is, can I get a job?
Right.
What people want to know is, how is the economy going to work for me? What people want to know is, how am I going to have the police stop beating my ass for no reason at all? What people want to know is, how can my kids play out in my yard and not get hookworms? How can I, as a citizen of the richest country on earth, don't have to deal with 19th century diseases? This is what they want to know. You know, so no more conferences. Unless that conference is going to be an agenda that we're going to say tomorrow we're going to get to work on it.
Right.
Unless those meetings, progressives, is going to be about, you know what, this is, and you said it, Jackie, when someone bemoaned about how nationally we're just not listened to by the media and we're just not this, and you said something that made a lot of sense. You said, you know what, we're talking nationally, but you know what, the school board has elections a lot more frequently
than the national
election. I mean, your city council has elections a lot more frequently than national elections. Your dog catcher, you know, all of these other things, fish and game, all this other kind of stuff. So, you know, instead of trying to always knock the ball out of the park and get the home run, why don't we constantly get a bunch of base hits?
Right.
You know what I mean? And I know y'all hate sports analogies. I'm not a big sports guy. But what I'm saying is the fact that why don't we start dealing where we live, as Jackie told one young man who was sitting up there bitching and moaning about how, you know, he can't do this and no one's covering this. Jackie said, but you got 2 feet. And you can take those 2 feet, millennial, because he was a millennial, take those 2 feet, listen to the old person you don't want to listen to, take your 2 feet in your hands and do it the old-fashioned way. Canvass your neighborhood.
That's right. And not just your neighborhood, but canvass neighborhoods where you want people to vote for you.
Right.
You know, well, one of the things that I'm so glad you brought up the Tea Party, because you know how the Tea Party was managed. Do you know how they were able to influence the national government? They started at the local level.
Yeah.
They started at the school board. They started talking about this stuff in their church. And next week, I think we're probably going to do a show specifically on religion, on progressive revolutionary faith. Because we've been saying we're going to talk about that for a minute. Even though we do have another conference we have to go to next weekend. But this is the People's Congress Conference, so I'm hoping for some actual concrete strategies, some connections where we can get people to work, you know, people who are doing the work. Okay, but the Tea Party was able to influence the government by starting at the local level. They started with putting people on the school board. They started with putting people on city councils in their small towns. They had these little town hall meetings in their churches. You know, yeah, there was some racism involved there, but I'm not talking about the goals of the Tea Party. I'm talking about their strategy. I'm talking about how they did it. I'm not talking about what they did. I'm looking at how they did it.
That's right. And
how they did it is what we don't want to do. Because, see, we want the microwave revolution.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we want that revolution right now.
Yeah,
because
hot pocket.
Right, a hot pocket revolution. That's a good one.
Pocket.
We want a hot pocket revolution because doing these things are the right things to do. Well, look, not everybody has the same understanding of right and wrong. We cannot impute our own morality onto other people. So for us to believe that we can just convince people to do these things on a national level because that's the right thing to do, and we're going to convince them to do it just by marching all the time, that's not how it's going to work. And I told people yesterday, these efforts that we have to make in the progressive movement to get our goals accomplished, we're not going to accomplish these goals at the national level over in the next 4 years. Maybe not even in the next 8. But we can get some of these goals accomplished at the local levels, though. We can get some progressives in critical positions of power and influence in our cities, in our towns, on our school boards, on our city councils, in our court system, in our sheriff's offices. Yes, we can do that, but see, we don't want to do that because we're so focused on every 4 years, every 2 years, every 4 years with the president, every 2 years for Congress. There are other elections going on everywhere in this country in between the major elections.
Right.
Focus on those right now.
Well,
and while you're doing that politically, focus on meeting the needs of the people who you live around.
Exactly.
You know, that's how we grow the revolution too. We don't just grow the revolution by getting the right progressive politicians elected. We grow the revolution by reaching out to people and touching the lives of people who are in need. When people see that you care about them, they want to know what you care about.
And you know what? There was yesterday at the end of the first conference on racism, there was a young white Caucasian young man, just graduated out of college in sociology.
Yeah.
I was so impressed with this young man. See, for those of you who don't know me, I'm not anti-white. I'm anti-white supremacy. I'm anti-white bullshit.
Yep.
I'm anti all that other kind of crap.
Anti-white fragility.
Yeah, I'm that. But what I'm not is anti-white. I believe in black empowerment when it comes to politics and black empowerment when it comes to self-determination, which means I don't need white people to tell me what to do. I know how to solve my own problems. If you can assist me in that, fine.
Right.
But I don't need you to lead me.
Right.
And so that's what I mean by self-determination. But this young white brother, man, he really impressed me because he talked to Jackie, spoke with Jackie first, then he came and him and I spoke. And he said to me, he said, he said, I want to really get involved. This is what he said. He said, I want to get involved. And I was impressed because he wasn't coming to me with all the answers. He wasn't coming to me and saying, like, this is what y'all need to do. He said, I want to get involved. And so I told him, I said, you want to get involved? He said, yeah. I said, well, you know what, man, you might as well get your feet wet. I said, we live in Southeast D.C. I said, and I gave him my number, we exchanged information. And I said, look, we're going to call you and we're going to hook you up with some organizations we work with. And I said, and you're going to come right to the hood.
Yep.
Because you know what, man, look, you went through your boot camp, you got your degree. Now it's time to jump into the war. And I said, if we're going to sit up there and we're going to get you hooked up with us and get involved with some organizations that we work with. And you know what? And then, man, and then you could do. And see, I like that because we spoke further, Jackie, and he said, I asked him about identity politics. Here's a young Caucasian brother. You know what he told me? He said, racial issues is not identity politics to me. And I said, really? He said, no. And so he went on and he said, how can that be identity politics when different groups have different needs and concerns? How can you just write that over there? I said, man, this guy, man, I was like, wow. You know what I mean? So that's the reason why we never put everybody in the box. You can't generalize about anyone.
Right.
So that's why when Jackie and I say what we say as far as racism and stuff go, we try to make it clear that we're not saying all white people, but yet we don't feel like we have to keep saying it. You should know. You should know that. Man, right. But we say that no, we're not talking about all white people. We're not talking about our biggest supporters on Coffee Current Events and Politics are white people who we have that we love you guys and a lot of you we know personally. Some of you we know personally. So it ain't about that. We just ain't down for the bullshit. So and that goes for black folks too. We had to bite into their ass a few times too. So when they come with this stuff. So the point being is that we have another interview to do at 7.
Yeah.
But look, Jackie, I'm going to toss the ball back to you. The only thing I want to say is no more conventions unless that convention is that we're going to get to work. And look, the People's Party is the Green Party. Take that over. Let's get the keys. Go out into that driveway and drive that car because it's already there. And let's build that up. It has name recognition.
True.
People who don't even like the Green Party at least heard about it. So they have name recognition, and they got some really good people that's on the ground. What we need to stop doing, progressives, is stop chasing personalities.
Oh my God.
Because we promote people in these parties we promote people, we support people who are just crazy, and they have their own agenda, and their agenda is not the agenda of the people.
Right.
You know what I mean? We need to stop going after these people, and we also we need to stop like the young man from my home state of Jersey, and I close with this. You know, we have people that say, "Oh, well, you know, interview who's the guy from Turkey from the TYT?"
Oh, Jordan Charity.
You know, people going after Jordan, people going after this person, people going after that person, and you know what? And Jackie and I got with the guy, the Green. We call him the Green Party guy, but the Green Party guy from Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
And we got him as a guest coming up shortly in the future,
Mm-hmm.
and we went and talked to other people, because see, the thing of it is that everybody wants to talk to Jeremy, Jordan. I mean, yeah, Jordan. Everybody wants to talk to Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody wants to talk to the people that's the big names, and everybody wants them.
Right.
But as wonderful as those people are, and they are doing the work, but what gets lost in all of the celebrity chasing is my man from Jersey, who's out there in the 4th Ward in Patterson, where I used to live. And I know how bad that ward is.
Mm.
And he's out there on the ground. There's no cameras there.
Right.
There's nobody sitting up there helping him, but he's doing the work. Gary Frazier down there in Camden, that my home city, is down there doing the work. So you know, so these people, they don't get the spotlight because see, you know, they're not the Kanye Wests in them of the progressive movement. They're not the celebrities.
Right.
So while we're doing all of the celebrity chasing, we're ignoring important people who are doing the work, and we're ignoring them. So Jackie and I, those are the people we gravitate to. Yeah, we don't discount and we don't minimize nobody's work in this movement. But at the same time, like we said before, we started this in order to give voice to the voiceless. Mm-hmm. And just as we complain that the media doesn't cover our issues as progressives, we do that to each other.
Yeah.
And so here you got the guy in Jersey, the Green Party guy, and you got other people who are out there trying to do the work. And you know what? We do a progressive blackout of what they're doing because they're not important enough to us.
They don't have enough name recognition.
Right.
And that's not what we're about here in Luqman Nation. You know, we may never get a whole lot of views. I know some people love, you know, doing their live streams and having hundreds of views, and that's all fine and good. But what we're about is sharing information and talking to the people who are on the ground doing the work and telling their stories. And because hopefully something they're doing, you can take some of that information and use it where you're working, where you are, and you can do some of those things.
That's right.
And you can spread that information. So that's why hopefully later on tonight we're finally going to talk to Comey Parrott out of Southside Chicago. I hope you remember him. I talked to him at the People's Summit in Chicago. I hope we're going to be able to bring you that interview this evening. But he is going to be a regular contributor on Luqman Nation. Why are we doing that? Because he's on the ground in Chicago. And rather than us telling you his story, we want him to tell you his story. We want him to talk to Luqman Nation and explain to you what it is the people on the ground are doing in Chicago. And we want to continue to do that kind of stuff for you guys in Luqman Nation, because that's why we're here. The only currency in Luqman Nation is truth. So thanks for joining us this Sunday on Luqman Sunday.
Yep.
In Luqman Nation.
Share this video. Going on, you know, y'all know the drill. Share.
I'm coming around the camera.
Right. Share the video. Go on our Facebook page, Coffee Curtain Events and Politics, and like the page if you haven't. Go on Brick by Brick, which is by Jacqueline Luqman. Go on Facebook on her page, like and subscribe. YouTube channel, Luqman Nation. Subscribe to that. We have a Patreon account. You can donate, one-time donation, or you can, you know, ride and die with us and donate monthly. You know what I mean? However you want to do it. But that's another thing too, man. I mean, it's like we just want to thank you guys again. We don't take your support for granted, and we'd like to thank you guys for sticking with us and supporting us.